It's got soft over here. We want to make sure that they're lively and fresh and they're alert. No dead lobsters going in there. Hard shell, right? All right, Steve, throw them in there. Let's see what we're all about.
While he's cooking away back there, I'm gonna make a seasoning mix with some salt and these spices from your local grocery store.
Yum, that sounds great.
Keep stirring away back there, Reggie.
Good evening. Welcome everybody to this episode of today's episode of Café con Gas. I'm all like jumbled up. If you guys recognize me from the 6:30 spot last week, I walked into the studio a little bit early and switched spots for a week, but that's not my time, and this is my time, and it's 7 o'clock, and we're here live. So, how is everybody today? How are you feeling? Whew, last episode was really hard. I wasn't feeling good. I wasn't feeling good, and part of CCTV is community, and part of CCTV and BeLive and the BeLive set, part of my contributions and my excitement here today is making that commitment to be seen every week. And last episode, to recap, was really difficult for me because I was seen. I didn't feel, I wasn't, how do I say this? It's not that I didn't feel on, it was just that I was integrating my experience of feeling really triggered. My PTSD was pretty flary with all of the news and the violence in Ferguson and what was happening in the news and with the passing of Robin Williams, and all of a sudden, whenever there's bursts of mental health conversations, a part of me inside is like, where am I? Where am I? Where am I in this dialogue? And I realize where I am in this dialogue is here with you guys on Café con Gas. So I appreciate so much for you tuning in. Special thanks to CCTV. I'm renewing my contract. It's going to be a second year in August. I'm so excited. It's my second year of membership. So that's a really big deal for me. That's a really, really big deal for me. So I have some papers. I brought you guys some papers. I brought some exercises, some notes. I also had some shades. The ocean took my favorite round shades. I'm just going to be honest, and while I'm on camera, I'm just going to fix this. I'm going to do emotional check-in. I felt uncomfortable. Now I feel more comfortable. There we go. So anyways, on the topic of emotional check-in, let's go right to it. So I have a recycled piece. Let's talk about it for today's emotional check-in. Let's see. We're going to zoom out for a second. But anyway, so what am I feeling? So we're going to do squares for how I'm feeling today. So I'm feeling happy. I'm feeling a little bit cautious. I definitely passed through a really difficult moment last weekend, but it still doesn't change the fact that I'm just feeling like I feel like not saying so many times. Whenever I overcome an obstacle or have an achievement or also integrate really big emotions, there's a little bit of hesitancy on the way down from that experience. So that's why there's a little bit of caution. So I'm just really excited that I just established this connection right now. So I'm happy, cautious. Let's see. I'm hopeful, that's for sure. I'm hopeful, and I think that's pretty much it. So that's today's emotional check-in for you guys. I'm really excited to bring that to you guys live at 7 o'clock from CCTV. So let's go on to other news. I'm going to do something really exciting. Let me just pull this up for you. I was thinking, so on my website, Café con Gas, cafecongas.com, I do something that's called a desktop dump. And when I do a desktop dump, I take all these JPEGs that I've liked and known through the years, and I dump them onto my blog so I have a place for them. And in doing so, I've created this really exciting little anecdote for you guys. So anyways, we're going back to desktop dump, Facebook dump. Let's talk about it. I wanted to try something a little bit different, and we're going to go to the Café con Gas website page, which has, there we go. All right, so it's got 43 likes. I'm really excited about that. So I wanted to bring up something for you guys, and let's see. All right, I wanted to bring something for you guys that was really, really exciting. So this is, This is Professor Kelly Carter Jackson. She was
Hi, my
a
name
college
is Kelly
fellow.
Carter Jackson, and I'm
Oh.
a Harvard College Fellow at Harvard University.
Okay, she just said it for herself. So let's just take a pause for a second. She just totally said it for herself. That was a beautiful moment. Anyway, so this is Professor Kelly Carter Jackson, and she was in this innovative Derek Bach teaching contest, and then this is what she says. This is what she about teaching.
Hi, my name is Kelly Carter Jackson, and I'm a Harvard College Fellow at Harvard University in the Department of African and African American Studies. I study 19th century African American history, the abolitionists, the Civil War. It's kind of my bread and butter. The name of the game is called Name 5, and it's played when students are timed to list 5 categories of people. They can be living or dead. They just have to be notable. Name 5 African Americans, name 5 Latino Americans, name 5 Asian Americans, name 5 Native Americans, and name 5 disabled Americans. Once the game is up, then I have them put their pencils down, and then we start to deconstruct their list. So I ask them, how many had 5 out of 5, all 5 categories? No one ever has that. I ask them, how many of them have women listed out of their 5? You know, if the category will produce about 30 names, 15 of them should roughly be women. You'd be shocked and surprised to find out how many students don't really have women on their list. And then we go through and we start to talk about, well, why is that in a world that's 50% made of women? Why don't we see women on your list? For Native Americans, normally the list is comprised of Native Americans like Pocahontas or Sitting Bull, but I find that very rarely are students able to name a contemporary or living Native American that is notable. And then I ask the students, how would that make you feel if you were Asian American and no one could name 5 in the classroom? How would it make you feel if you were Latino American and no one in your classroom could name 5 notable Latino Americans? And what are we saying when we say that we struggle to name 5? Are we saying that these groups have contributed nothing to American history or nothing to American society? Well, we all know that to be false. So the purpose of the goal and the purpose of the game is to not show them how much they don't know, but to show them how the world has really been presented to them. When I first started even playing this game, I realized that I was struggling to name 5, so I had to come to grips with some of my own shortcomings in my learning experience. But what I tell the students, especially for a course like Introduction to African American History, I teach the first half of the survey, I tell them that the way I'm going to teach this history is that by the end of the course, they should be able to name 5. And not so much to be able to name 5 to kind of pat themselves on the back and say, look, I did it, I'm not a racist, right? But it's really to show how you can see history not just through the perspective of winners, but through the perspective of losers, or through the perspectives of people who are on the margins of the textbook. I tell the students often to look at a textbook and see how political it is. If you have a textbook that has 2 chapters on the history of Christianity, and then 2 paragraphs on the history of Islam, that's really political in terms of how that's being presented to you. I ask them over and over again, if you're seeing a story of nothing but celebrities and entertainers and winners, are you really getting a biography of American history, or are you getting a biography of power? I think that's really important to understand power dynamics. Whose voice is the loudest? How do we give people voice and volume in history, I think is intensely important. And this is a way of sort of highlighting whose voices have not been heard and why. So some of the pitfalls, I would say, just making sure that students are engaged, and making sure that students don't feel to blame for not being able to name 5, that this is not something that is a personal shortcoming, but that it's a political shortcoming in the way in which the world and society has been presented to them over the course of their educational experiences. I've done it in a history class. But last year I did it in my film class. And so I played name five black actors, name 5 Latino actors, name 5 Native American actors. Johnny Depp does not count. Taylor Lautner does not count. I think that's really, really important when we start to think about, wow, in terms of Native American actors, who's actually Native that's playing Native American actors? I think you could do this with literature. I think you could do it with name 5 authors, Latino authors, Asian authors, disabled authors. You could do this with the sciences. You could pick any field really and name 5 groups, name 5 marginalized groups. And I think it would be a struggle for students to come up with these names. But I also think it's a wonderful opportunity to be able to introduce new names into their classroom, into their textbooks for them to study and for them to learn about. I think it's an awesome way to create diversity and to talk about the immense amounts of diversity that are all around us within the arts, within the sciences, within government. All of that is intensely important to see.
So that was the video. That's Professor Kelly Carter Jackson. I absolutely, I love that message. I was actually taking some notes because something that I thought about on the way here is not only how I can bring healing, arts, and diversity, but how can I flip the script on that and how can I connect in new ways? I tend to leave diversity for the last topic. Sometimes I infuse it in the middle or the beginning, but I really feel like just in absolutely every single episode that I feel like I embody it and I live it. And I'm also confronting the way that I've also learned my own history and the priorities and the voices. And when Professor Jackson talks about the volume of the voices, I thought that was so incredible because what do I see in the news? I see articles about millennials. I see articles about camping that I talked about last week on the episode, and I just see different things, and I'm not seeing. I see the voices, like she said so beautifully. Like who are the voices marginalized in the books? Marginalized means like you have a piece of paper and it's 8.5 by 11, and then you have like margins on the side. So Professor Jackson teaches at Hunter College. She got a job at Hunter College, and she's an incredible teacher. And I just wanted to, I have the great privilege of participating and working in an academic setting, and I like to bring those moments to a public community setting because these are tools, the 5-question games. Next time I go camping, I just feel like I should ask the 5-question game. So let's just go, we're gonna hop back for a second. We're gonna do a little PMP action, and I'm gonna show you guys something. So this really like meant a lot to me. And this is a poem, and it's written by a representative, Andre Lee Muñiz, and I'm not sure if she's related. I'm not sure who she's related to. It doesn't matter. She just captured exactly what the Boricua struggle was about. So this one, In the Name of the Arts, is a poem that embodies all 3 topics of healing, arts, and diversity. And it talks a lot about what is the Boricua experience. Boricua is another term for Puerto Rican, and Andre is from Brooklyn. So I'm gonna read this poem to you guys. You can also read it, and please like my Facebook page if you're interested. So the poem reads, "For many years, I struggled intellectually being a Brooklyn Boricua, not knowing what land to call home. Trips to the island made it no better, only time and meditation did. Torn between 2 worlds, 2 languages made me uncomfortable. One strange to the ear, the other forced by circumstance. Torn between 2 worlds, neither made me feel welcome. One strange to experience, the other a cold place of exile. Torn between 2 worlds, I realize I am the product of their unity." Notice the non-capitalized I. I am the product of their unity. I am a resident of a cultural and historical zone of conflict. Here is where I was truly born. Here I am, free to be me. Here I am, a new space claiming no land, at home in the Boricua diaspora. Whew. All right, guys, that, I read that and I'm glowing. I read that and that speaks so much to my heart and so much to the heart of what I'm feeling. And I think in a really kind of brash way, I sent it to my prima. I'm like, para que tú puedes conocerme, so that you would get to know me. And I didn't know how to contextualize it. I just had to send it. And I hope she received it in a way that kind of makes sense. So that's the Boricua diaspora. That's some like really, really beautiful things that are going on. And I think it's just really interesting. I'm just gonna go back to that page. So it's really interesting because what she talks about, here I was I'm reading on the computer. So torn between, let's go back to PNP. I'm gonna read from this poem. So I'm gonna put it on the side that I'm reading it from. Boop, boop, boop. All right, I'm gonna do this instead. All right, so torn between two worlds, neither made me feel welcome, one strange to experience, the other a cold place of exile. So what is exile? It's interesting. There's a lot of language here that's really academic, and because I had the great privilege of not having a babysitter and my mom's convinced her professor to take me to class, I had a context of what these words were. And I had a little bit more of a global understanding. But what I didn't understand, the part where she says, I am the product of their unity. I am a resident of a cultural and historical zone of conflict. When I see certain moves, when I see people talking about the military presence, the National Guard, the police, violence, corruption, I see, because Puerto Rico is such a small island, I also see how it's played there and here. And I think Puerto Ricans have a lot to teach. Puerto Rican Americans have a lot to teach Americans about what it is to be American. Because we have, you have Jon Stewart saying we all hate each other, we all came from the same place. But you have these really interesting moments. So I had a really profound healing moment. I brought up Ferguson, what's happening, the death of a young Black man named Michael Brown. The violent death and the riots that followed after. So I've been thinking a lot about Ferguson, and I realized on Café con Gas I introduced Ferguson in 3 ways. And those 3 ways, one of them was a meme with the Howard University students putting their hands up. And then the follow-up was a meme, a follow-up was a conversation of what was happening, a little more of a revealing of the 2 sides. And I realized, so I've been watching a lot of the follow-up dialogue, and there's a couple of dialogue. There was a dialogue that reversed the meme that's saying, like, people, like white people should be saying, I won't shoot, instead of saying, don't shoot. But then, again, I had this moment where I felt really connected, but I also had this moment where I asked myself, what in my own life, what in my own human revolution can I address? And what can I do? And I also, so that was really, really profound. And in the name of that profundity, I also wanted to bring up something else for you guys. And I've just been trying to be conscious about my social media. There we go. I'm just trying to be conscious about my social media consumption. And in doing that, I've just been exploring ways where I can come to Café con Gas and I can say, hey, I saw that on my YouTube channel, or hey, I saw that on my news feed, and not just perceive my social media network as my complete reality. There's a complement between the 2. So I'm working through those things. So in doing that, you guys may have seen a lot of the videos and pages on the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. You see people like taking an ice bucket, and then they freeze. And the ice bucket is supposed to mimic the friction, the constriction of muscles. ALS is a really crippling disease. I have a generation of on my paternal side, my grandmother and her brother who passed away of degenerative neurological disease. And it was really painful to watch, and it was really painful to go through. And it was a 7-year process of slowly not being able to walk, not being able to hold hands, not being able to talk. And so again, it was like one of those things where I was like, great, the people who don't know about it all of a sudden are engaging in it and knowing about it, but where is the engagement for the voices who have been silent, the voices that have been you know, the voices that the volume has been down, like Professor Jackson was saying from the beginning. So I saw this on someone else's news feed, and I pasted the image. This is a quote. This is not my quote, but it is part of my social media experience. So I'm maintaining the privacy of the individual, but I cut, copy, and pasted the words. So basically, it's a scientist who got, so you pass along this ALS challenge. So if I were to do it here in the studio, which I can't because I can't get the floor wet, but if I were to do it here in the studio, I would pour the ice over my head, and you know, then I would say, I challenge you, I challenge Chris Lawn, BeLive program coordinator, to the ALS challenge. But I challenge you, I'm going to start challenging you guys at home, these as audience, to take a moment and think, how can I challenge myself in this situation? So I read this and I thought this was awesome. And so this comes from a scientist, and he says, I was challenged to dump the ice water over my head in support of research to find a cure for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. Some of you may be expecting a video of me of dumping water over my head, but doing so does not cure the disease. Pledging money to ALS helps, but scientific research does not work well at the mercy of intermittent funding from an internet meme of the week. Projects in exploration are not light switches that go from off to on, but instead require decades of building thought. Success is gained through trial and error, laborious efforts, and yes, some serendipity, but these achievements were funded years ago. I asked everyone to make a more thoughtful and long-term approach to medicinal research funding. Do you want a cure for ALS and other diseases? Me too. Here is what I pledge, and here is what everyone else should do. So this is when it gets good. Drum roll, please. So, in the name of healing arts and diversity, we're doing some cross-section intersections right here. So this is like the intersection of like science and like actual healing. So at the intersection of all of them, he says, this gentleman pledges the following. I will support politicians who support the National Institute of Health that government shut down, that some were happy about. The government shutdown that some were so happy about, those sequestration cuts that please so many, ALL research. Little fragmented, I don't really understand, but he says he's going to support the Institutes of Health, and then I think he makes like an internal reference that I don't really get yet, but that's okay. I will demand real science education in our schools. I really, really love that quote. How can we develop the new generation of scientists to discover cures that have yet to be imagined when we give them such confusing building blocks to construct their foundation? Intelligent design has no place in our science classroom and textbooks any more than alchemy, the autism/vaccination link, or climate change denial. I will fight for the National Endowment for the Arts because without inspiration, it is impossible to be inspired. In the name of the arts. All right. And I will rail against those who seek to buy elections and advance political agendas. I will donate to the ALS on the wealthy, when the wealthy should be funding these programs. I will donate to the ALS Foundation, to politicians who believe that corporations are not people and that money is not speech, and to my local school system in support of the arts and science. I will vote in every general, primary, and local election possible. And I will not do this while keeping my head dry because dumping ice water over your head does not prove you care about something. That was that was a letter from an open letter on Facebook from one of a friend of a friend who's a scientist, and that really changed my life. He's like a scientist. He's like, I will cure ALS by fighting for art. He believes in the intersections of the arts and sciences, and I love how he talks about artificial intelligence having no place in the classroom other than alchemy. Again, going back to our history lesson of today, where we talked about and we like sat back and said how is history being told to us? What are biographies of life and what are biographies of power, and what priorities do that have? So I am so happy that there's awareness around the issues of racism, mental health, and diseases like ALS, but I'm also really, really excited, and I also ask you guys to do your own emotional check-in so that you can find other people around you who also corral around your local issues, inspire you to get involved, and also you feel safe with to talk about what you're going through. A lot of Americans are feeling stressed and poisoned, and We have a problem with food right now, and we also have a problem across the world. It's really hard times. So those are some things that you guys can do to kind of rally up, and not rally, I don't want to say that. Rally up is so, that makes me such a mass resident for saying rally up. I'd be like, let's rally up. So that's what's going on here. So I have one more song, but you know, I was gonna play you guys this song. I'm gonna recommend this song in the name of the arts, and then we're gonna close the show with something really exciting that I wanted to share. But I have two music recommendations for you. Again, respecting that this music comes from big companies. I wanted to just say, check out D. I'm actually gonna pull this up on the screen. All right, so you see this link right here, D apostrophe Banj, Banj, Oliver Twist. Check that video out on YouTube. We're talking about race, and he's in Africa, and this white guy, he comes in trying to do the zouk thing, and he's like, wait, you're just an Oliver Twist. And think about the story of Oliver Twist. He's like an orphaned kid, you know, from Europe, and it was just really, really intense. So again, brothers, you know, we come together as brothers and sisters in a very intense time, and something that it's in a really difficult time. And I think one of the best things we can do is not only help each other, but look at the issues and how they affect us. And emotional check-ins, I think, are a really, really helpful tool for that. So in that spirit, I have one more thing to leave you guys with. So I have a website for you guys. Let's go to the .cam really quick. A website for you guys, and I just wanted you to check this out. Go to, I know a lot of my friends and a lot of other people on Facebook are having trouble sleeping. If you're curious about ways you can start your healing process, we're going to do wrapping up with healing. Go to psychologytools.org. There's a Creative Commons license on there, and you can go to that website, and you can go, it's a .org company, so, and it's also Creative Commons. So go, seek, explore. Thank you so much for being with me, guys, being with me today, tonight, tomorrow, yesterday. And yeah, have a really, really awesome night. And yeah, I'll see you guys the next time, and I hope you enjoyed today's